Hello, my fellow classmates and audience. The oil industry is one of the largest industries in our country. That said, it is also one of the most dangerous. One example of a dangerous incident within the oil industry is the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. Today, I would like to share with you the cause, effect, and how they stopped the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. According to Turcotte with the Social Science Quarterly Report, the date and location of the Deepwater Horizon oil spill occurred on April 20th, 2010 within the Gulf of Mexico. It was approximately about 41 miles off the coast of Louisiana. So what caused the Deepwater Horizon oil spill? Well, according to Beeland with the Journal of Environmental Economics and Management, the cause was a well within the oil rig the seal had broken. It had failed. So because of this, there was a large explosion of the oil rig. The oil rig ended up sinking on April 22nd, causing a massive leak of oil within the ocean. This specific oil rig was owned by Transocean along with BP. Both Transocean and BP are major oil companies within the oil industry. So what were the effects on people from the Deepwater Horizon oil spill? According to Rung with the Environmental Health Perspectives, approximately 11 oil rig workers died and 17 were injured. This proves that the oil industry can be very dangerous. Not only was it harmful to people, but also to the environment, which I will cover later. Out of 2,842 women in Louisiana that were exposed to the oil spill, about 28% of those women experienced symptoms of depression. Now, the symptoms of depression in most of these women, not all of their cases, but most, was because of a loss of income. Many of themselves or their spouses worked with Transocean and BP, who owned the oil rig. When the explosion occurred, these women experienced a loss of income, as many of them or their spouses could not go to work until the oil rig had been capped off and the oil leak no longer occurred. Infants were also exposed to various amounts of pollution. Now, when an infant is exposed to pollution, it cannot fight off infection as much as our adult bodies can. So therefore, many of infants who were exposed to the pollution experience very harsh health consequences. So now we have covered the effects of people. So how did it affect the environment? According to Polardi with the Britannica Encyclopedia, between 134 million to 206 million gallons of oil was released in the ocean. This is approximately 5 million barrels of oil. Now, if you can imagine, 1,300 miles of oil was covered in the Gulf of Mexico. If you can imagine how large that is, it is about the portion of the state of Louisiana. It also had a major effect on animals and the environment within the ocean. 800,000 birds did not survive, and 65,000 turtles also did not survive. About 20% of the oil that was released had sunk to the bottom of the ocean, causing harm to the ecosystems at the bottom at deep sea level. As you can see, according to these facts, it was a very detrimental disaster that happened within our ecosystem, and also many people in the state of Louisiana who were directly exposed to large amount of pollution. So how did they stop the oil spill? According to Biello, with the Scientific American website, on May 26, BP technicians used pumps rated at about 30,000 horsepower that used drilling mud to throw into the ocean. They also used what they called junk shots. Junk shots consist of golf balls along with rubber balls. Now, when the mud and the golf and rubber balls were placed into the ocean, it slowed the pace and the flow of the oil, meaning that it was vastly spreading. However, when you put this weight from the golf balls, rubber balls, and the mud on the oil did not spread as far vastly or as wide as it did deeper. So it could have been a case of a transboundary pollution where it could have gone from one contaminated area in the Gulf of Mexico to another country. However, because they used the pumps with the mud and the junk shots, it decreased the spread of the oil. On July 12th, BP's team finally capped off the oil using ROVs. An ROV is a remotely operated vehicle. The engineer who controls the ROV sits in a room with a bunch of TVs along the wall. Now, these monitors or TV screens that they see is cameras that is connected to the vehicle underwater. Now, through these cameras, they can steer. They have two controllers similar to like you see on an airplane or an arcade game that control the vehicle. Transocean, as I spoke about earlier, is actually one of the first who created the ROVs. Now, luckily, this oil spill happened on their site, so they had plenty of ROVs available to use. So the engineers control these on water, but they are underwater working on the rig. So the ROVs were used to cap off the well that had a seal that had broken, causing the release of oil. So it was about 2 months later after the oil leak occurred when they finally were able to cap it off. In conclusion, as you can see, the Deepwater Horizon oil spill was very detrimental to not only to people but also to the environment as well. We actually are seeing the side effects still today, almost 11 years later. Thank you for your time and thank you for listening to my speech, and I appreciate you joining me today.